Hola, soy yo, Vicky de El Príncipe Center, otra vez, and today's video we're going to talk about reflexive verbs. So, if you are following these tutorials from my books, we're looking at the Break the Language Barrier Level 2 now, and we're actually on page 4. If you don't have the books, that's fine. You can follow the tutorial perfectly well, learning about reflexive verbs without the book. It's just that some people like to follow it as they go along with the books as well. Now, level 2 of Break the Language Barrier, I always refer to as the pain barrier because it's probably the most difficult level, because in level 2 we start to look at reflexive verbs, past tenses, pronouns, things that start to get a little bit more complicated perhaps than they were in level 1. However, practice makes perfect, so it's not to say it can't be done, it just, it's perhaps a little bit trickier. But I always think it starts off quite difficult, like especially when we get into the past tenses, but by the end of the course, once you've compared them, done exercises and conversation practices with them, normally by the time people get to the end of the level, they actually start to understand it a lot better. But there's a sort of the reason I call it the pain barrier is because there's sort of a little bit in the middle where you can think, oh my God, this is too much information. But you just have to go through the pain barrier and come out the other side. Okay, so reflexive verbs. Now, the reason that reflexive verbs are a little bit tricky is because we don't have them in the English language. So if you're an English speaker, whether it's your first language or not, anything that doesn't exist in that language is always a bit harder to get your head around in another language. So in English, we don't have reflexive verbs. But basically, a reflexive verb is something that we do to ourselves. So in other words, the action is reflected back to the person. So what does this mean? Well, the example that we've got is the verb llamar. Now, llamar is the verb to call. And this is the verb you would use if you're calling your dog, calling your friend on the phone, calling your husband, calling your wife, etc. Anything calling at your friend's house. Llamar is what you would use for call. When we change it and make it reflexive, what we do is we put a se on the end. So the infinitive, the original verb, instead of being llamar, is llamarse. So when we come to conjugate it, now we're still in the present tense at the moment. The good news is we're just using the same endings that we learned in level 1, the endings for the AR verbs, ER verbs, and IR verbs in the present tense. Now, if you don't know the endings of verbs in the present tense, you need to watch those videos first. You also need to watch the videos on diphthongs because a lot of reflexive verbs are diphthongs. So if you don't know what a diphthong is yet, you need to watch those first. It's a structured progression. So if you try and watch this without knowing about verb endings or diphthongs, you're not really going to be able to understand it, to be honest. So, okay, so if you don't know those things, go back to the previous videos. But if you do know those things, so if you know that AR verb endings in the present tense are o, as, a, amos, ais, an, and you know the ER verb endings are o, s, e, emos, es, en, and the IR verb endings are o, s, e, imos, is, en. And also, if you know the way that diphthongs work, then let's carry on. So we've got llamar, to call, llamo, llamas, llama, llamamos, llamáis, llaman. But then we've got llamarse, to be called or to call oneself. So what we also have to do is conjugate the little reflexive pronoun from the end, the se. So we have me llamo, I call myself. Te llamas, you call yourself. Se llama, he, she, or it calls him, her, or itself. Nos llamamos, we call ourselves, or we are called, it would translate perhaps better to. Os llamáis, you call yourselves, plural. Se llaman, they call themselves. So that's how we conjugate a reflexive verb. So we're just going to, in this tutorial, we'll look at some other conjugations of reflexive verbs, and then in the next one, we'll carry on to actually practice them in context and in questions. So on page 5, if you have the book, as I say, if you don't have the book but you would quite like to buy the book, you can buy it through my website or on any Amazon site. It's Break the Language Barrier Level 2, Vicki Riley. Any Amazon site, Vicki with an I. Okay, so the first example we've got here is levantarse. Levantarse is to get up, or it's literally to raise yourself up. So we would conjugate this: me levanto, te levantas, se levanta, nos levantamos, os levantáis, se levantan. The next one, número 2, we've got despertarse. This is to wake oneself up or to wake up. This is also a diphthong, e changing to ie, so we conjugate it. Me despierto, te despiertas, AR verb. Se despierta, nos despertamos, because remember in the nosotros and vosotros, we lose the diphthong. Os despertáis, and then back to the diphthong, se despiertan. Then we've got pintarse. Pintar is to paint. So pintarse is to paint oneself or to put on makeup. Anything you're painting on yourself, painting your nails, painting your face, this is pintarse. Me pinto, te pintas, se pinta. Nos pintamos, os pintáis, se pintan. So this is not what you would use for painting a house. You don't use a reflexive pronoun for that. Only something you're painting on yourself. Lavarse, to wash oneself, again, or to have a wash. If you're washing the car, washing the dog, washing anything else, it's not reflexive. It's only when you're washing your hands, your hair, something to do with yourself. Me lavo, te lavas, se lava. Nos lavamos, os laváis, se lavan. Then we've got ducharse, to shower oneself, or I think in English we'd probably say to have a shower. Me ducho, te duchas, se ducha. Nos duchamos, os ducháis, se duchan. Then acostarse, to go to bed, or to put, literally it's to put yourself to bed. And that is a diphthong, so it's me acuesto, te acuestas, se acuesta, nos acostamos, os acostáis, se acuestan. Then we've got afeitarse, to shave oneself or to have a shave. So, me afeito, te afeitas, se afeita, nos afeitamos, os afeitáis, se afeitan. Then we've got vestirse, to dress oneself, or we would probably say to get dressed. This is a diphthong, e changing to I, it's an IR verb. Me visto, te viste, se viste, nos vestimos, os vestís, se visten. And then número 9, ponerse, which is to put on, as in clothes. It can also mean to get, like to get nervous or to get angry. So bear that in mind too. Ponerse. It's a go-go verb. Again, if you don't know about go-go verbs, you need to look at the video that explains about go-go verbs. So, I put on, me pongo, te pones, se pone, nos ponemos, os ponéis, se ponen. And then número 10, peinarse. This is to comb one's hair or to do one's hair. Me peino, te peines, te peinas, it's an AR verb, se peina, nos peinamos, os peinais, se peinan. Vale, so that is how we conjugate reflexive verbs. Now, as I say, any verb really can be made reflexive, just that it changes the meaning of the verb as we know it. So if you take the verb hacer, to do or to make, hacerse, to do or make for yourself, you know, so it's just always reflecting that. If we make it reflexive, we reflect the action back to ourselves. That's I mean, there are some verbs you may see as you go along with Spanish. Well, I'm sure you already know if you've got this far, there's always an exception. So, you know, it might not quite fit with some verbs that reflects the action back to the person, but generally, the only rules we have really are general rules. Most rules operate in languages 95% of the time. It's not, you know, there's always that odd 5% or 2% or whatever that don't quite follow the rules that we try and follow. But some things do, but not reflexive verbs. So yeah, they're one of those things that we just have to accept about Spanish. If you, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, that in French we do have reflexive verbs. So if you know any French and you've done reflexive verbs before, that might help you out with this. Okay, ya está. Now, if you found this video useful in your understanding or certainly in your conjugation and introduction to reflexive verbs, please give me the thumbs up. And please subscribe if you'd like to receive notification of new videos coming out. I tend to upload videos once a week, but just depends when I've got time to do some, but I'm working my way through the Break the Language Barriers series. So, good. Vale. Hasta la próxima. Muchas gracias. Y adiós.